Investigation reveals how criminals are exploiting federal laws, all of it to supply weapons to drug cartels. Just take a look. It's a sound that's all too familiar in Reynosa and other Mexican border towns. Gunfire from AK-47s, AR-15s, and other assault rifles. Each year, thousands of them are traced back to the United States, and many of them right here to the Valley. Jonathan Blaze with the ATF office in Harlingen says his job is finding the people who bought the guns. Using the ATF's E-Trace system, Mexican police simply enter a gun serial number, launching an investigation. But there's just one problem.
There is no magical database, there is no national registry that ATF or the federal government, for that matter, has on firearms, firearms information or firearms ownership in the United States.
ATF agents can only find out who made the weapon. From there, the distributor, then the gun store, and finally the person who bought it. The whole process takes about 1 to 2 weeks. Just this year alone, 21 assault rifles found in Mexico have been traced back to the Valley, resulting in 4 criminal cases involving 14 people.
But they're being recruited by individuals who have contacts, whether it be inside the United States or direct contacts to cartels in Mexico.
Anthony Cecilio Jaramillo of Harlingen was one of those recruiters. ATF agents arrested him in March. He paid Irene Vieira, Alonso Sepulveda Jr., and other straw purchasers to buy assault rifles that ended up in Mexico. Gun stores in the 4 border states are all required to report people buying more than 1 assault rifle in a 5-day period. But gun traffickers know better.
They are diverting that law, and they're either sending a person in, straw purchaser, to buy just 1 firearm from 1 licensee and then go to a separate licensee, or they're staggering their purchases to circumvent that requirement.
Gun traffickers can go city by city, buying 1 assault rifle at each store. The ATF wouldn't even know until they're recovered in Mexico, days, weeks, months, or even years later. But some say there are easier solutions. UTB government professor Guadalupe Correa Cabrera is an expert on drug cartels. She believes a national database matching gun serial numbers to owners would help. But records must be updated each time a gun changes hands. The professor crosses the border at least once a week. She says Mexico also needs to do more.
Sometimes nobody verifies what I have. I can be wearing a bag. I mean carrying a backpack, and I can be traveling to Mexico 10 times and carrying 5 guns.
Regardless of what solution is used, gun trafficking is on a collision course with the Second Amendment. Jeremy Riley with the Rio Gun Club in La Feria has been around guns all his life. He favors stricter penalties, stricter sentences, and more funding for the ATF. But he says a national gun registry is not the right solution.
There's like 350 million guns in this country already. Just the sheer logistics of telling everybody, hey, I need to know what guns you have. And then that just opens up the government just one more step into being able to control our Second Amendment.
Back in Harlingen, Agent Blaze says they'll continue to do their work to shut down the pipeline of weapons to Mexico.
You know, ultimately that firearm is going to end up in the hands of somebody who's going to use it for a crime of violence and is going to hurt somebody or kill somebody with it.
Little John Perry's father says he knew it was too late once he got to the canal and saw the rushing water. But still, he dove in an attempt to save his 7-year-old son. But it was too late. John was gone.
He was my life. He wasn't just my son. He was my companion. He was my best friend. He was my student. He was the brightest light in my sky.
At just 7 years old, John Perry Jr. had already been through more than someone twice his age. At the age of 2, he had open heart surgery. His father, John Perry Sr., says still his son persevered and fought to stay alive.
Me and his mother went through some hard times with him, and he was just the most special thing in the world to me. He was sweet. He was considerate, he was intelligent, he was inquisitive.
But on March 27th, no amount of fighting could save John Jr. After falling into a canal just behind his home, the 7-year-old drowned. His body was recovered a day later, feet from where he fell in. John Sr. says he doesn't want what happened to his family to happen to someone else. He wants this tragic accident to serve as a reminder to parents that anything can happen in the blink of an eye.
But even if I had seen a sign that said warning, canal zone, I would have taken my son there. Parents need to hold their children close. And you need to know your environment. Ma'am, I didn't know that canal was there. Didn't know.
For John, hindsight is 20/20. Had he known the canal was there, maybe he could have prevented this tragedy from happening. But he didn't. So now he just has to live with the memories he's accumulated over the past 7 years in hopes that one day the pain will slowly subside.
I want to thank my little boy for the 7 years that I had with him. He was the most, he was the brightest star in my sky, and I'll never be without him, never, man.
John Sr. tells us that through this dark time, there have been glimmers of hope in all the people that have stopped by to help his family through this dark time. In McAllen, Katie Lopez, Action 4 News.
Tomorrow, the clock is ticking. Action 4's Nadia Galindo is in McAllen with more on the protest there. Nadia.
Our politicians themselves.
That's right. We're here at Planned Parenthood in McAllen, and as you can hear and see, speakers are already taking this podium. Speakers are talking about, they say women in the Valley need to step up for women's rights. I'm going to step aside so you can listen to them for a minute.
On making sure women and their families have access to health care they need. Opponents of women's health may control the Capitol, but they do not.
Now, this is the last stop for the Stand With Texas bus tour. Organizers want to make their last stand against this bill in the Valley because the bill will essentially shut down the only 2 abortion clinics here. That means women will have to travel more than 200 miles to the nearest clinic, or what some fear will happen is that many women will turn to the black market or go into Mexico to get abortions. We spoke to protesters on both sides of the issue to see what they had to say.
It seems absurd to have a bunch of men making decisions that are going to limit the freedoms of women.
Our children that can't speak, that don't have a voice, to get out there.
Now, across the street, as you can see, those are pro-life protesters. They're making their voices heard, too. They say this bill is a step in the right direction, but what they really want is abortion to be gotten rid of completely. A lot of the speakers are talking about women's rights. As it goes through history, they hope they can make history today also. Reporting live in McAllen, Nadia Galindo, Action 4 News.
All right, a lot of
county to the 21st century by allowing criminal cases to be filed electronically.
Processing paper files is a time-consuming and costly task, but one that could soon be kicked to the curb.
There was a Supreme Court mandate that is now mandating all civil filings short of juvenile and child welfare cases. So come January 2014, Hidalgo County is in the top 10 counties who are going to start January 2nd.
And the county is about to add another e-filing to the list. Criminal cases. Recently, Representative Terry Canales' bill to move all criminal filings electronically passed the Texas House. Now, it still has to go through the Senate and get signed by Governor Rick Perry, but Canales says he doesn't see a problem with that happening.
Get passed, and I believe that we're well on our way to getting it done. It will bring the county into the 21st century. It will set a precedent for Texas. Hidalgo County will, for all intents and purposes, be the first county on the fast track to implement criminal e-filing in Texas.
While the financial impact of this new way of filing will have on the county is not certain, District Clerk Laura Hinojosa says it's definitely a step in the right direction and it's saving taxpayers money.
It will save attorneys so that they don't have to come to the courthouse. It will save us time, it saves us effort, it saves us money. It's truly the way of the future. And I'm very proud to say that Hidalgo County is on the cusp of not only civil but criminal filing as well.
Hinojosa says while Hidalgo County is on its way to the future of filing, there is still a ways to go. The rules for civil e-filing still haven't been adopted, but are expected to be by September. As for criminal e-filing, that will take a bit longer, but are being worked on.
The supply of fresh water in the Rio Grande Valley ebbs and flows radically as our weather cycles between tropical downpours and prolonged periods of drought. Right now, it seems the long dry spell couldn't get much worse. Joe Barrera knows it could get much worse. He's the Regional Water Authority district manager, and he worries every day for the future of water in the valley.
I wouldn't say that we're critical, but it's a serious situation, but it seems like everybody's united and working through it.
Let's take a look at where most of our water comes from, how it's measured, and gets delivered to you. Bulk water in the valley is measured in acre feet. 1 acre-foot of water will cover 1 acre of land or 1 football field 1 foot deep. This is roughly 325,000 gallons of water. The series of rivers and streams flowing into our reservoirs is enormous, covering a huge chunk of northern Mexico. Back in 1944, our two countries signed a water treaty, whereby the U.S. allows water to flow from the Colorado River out west into Mexico. In return, Mexico must allow more than 100 billion gallons of water a year to flow into the Rio Grande for our use. To date, Mexico is behind in its water payments by more than 140 billion gallons. Mexico has a large series of dams upstream of the Rio Grande, nearly a dozen stretching from the Conchos River Basin in Chihuahua to the Alamos and Salado Basin in the states of Coahuila and Nuevo León. 15 more dams are slated for construction, giving Mexico nearly absolute control of our water future.
We're going to see this kind of situation more often, and mainly because a great deal of our water comes out of Mexico, and Mexico has overdeveloped their use for their water.
I found this to be a real aha moment. Have you ever heard of something called push water? One of the primary ways of getting water to a town in the valley is to send the water by way of an irrigation canal. Some are open ditches, others are buried, but none are pressurized. The water must flow, in some cases up to 50 miles. Now I've set up this example here so that we can see how Valley City, a made-up town, gets 2 acre-feet of water a day. That's a little over 500,000 gallons of water a day. Now the water goes into the system, but it can't get to Valley City on its own. It needs a push, thus the term push water. So the water master has to keep an extra 500 acre-feet of water, that's almost 150 million gallons of extra water in the canals just to make the delivery not a very efficient system. Valley agriculture brings in $1.2 billion a year to our economy, but it has a big thirst since half of our crops are irrigated. When the canals start to dry up, farmers feel the pinch first.
We can see that we have a hard row to hoe right now, and we need to get we need to get aggressive in times when we have plenty of water, so that we can weather these storms better.
Rain or shine, the future for the valley lies in conservation and quick thinking. The city of McAllen sucks up 25 million gallons a day. Projects like this 1,000-foot deep water well will add millions of gallons a day, while others will reuse wastewater for irrigation.
We want to go to the jewels of the city, to the convention center area, to West Side Park and other parks, and start using 6 million gallons a day from the South Wastewater Treatment Plant that currently goes down to the Laguna and reuse it.
Conservation, deep wells, turning seawater into fresh water, effluent reclamation, take your pick. There are a lot of solutions, but the reality is the 1.4 million people of the Rio Grande Valley will have to start making changes to the way we do water.
The irrigation districts work harder than you think to make sure that mom and pop get their water, but we want them to realize that without conservation, we can't keep the water we don't have.